Okay, so today's video is officially brought to you by ADHD. There's not an actual real sponsor or anything like that, but it has been something I've been thinking about a lot. Also, before I forget, Miriam's just chilling in the background doing the Miriam stuff. She's wondering why I'm not sitting on the couch with her, and that is because it is too far away. Anywho, so what made me kind of like think about talking about ADHD today is that in a couple of my videos, people kind of, ask a really good question on my Instagram, on TikTok here. The question of why? Why did you do that? Or why was your family's reaction that? And the answer is simply undiagnosed and unmedicated ADHD for the vast majority of our family's history. That is it. That is the answer right there. So I had made this whiteboard that I didn't realize until afterwards that no one can see, and I'm not 100% sure how to do the thing because I'm not technically gifted. This will be a project for later on Veronica. She has a lot of projects that later on Veronica. Anyway, of like the three big reasons of why I think it honestly wasn't until 2-3 months ago. I'm in my 30s and I'm one of the first of my family to get diagnosed with ADHD. Why it's taken so long. And I just kind of wanted to share that today because I know my story is not unique and a lot of other people I know of are also like, how did no one know? When it seems so obvious. Like there's just certain stories I share that I'm like, you know what, now, oh, what's that phrase? Like, hindsight is 2020. Like looking back now, I'm like, oh yeah, 100. Oh yeah, 100%. But at the time I was like, this is how everyone does things, right? And my family's like, yeah, 100%. Everyone's like that. Well, so first on the list, as I say that even, is my family's understanding of ADHD. So on my mom's side of the family, that is a large group of people with undiagnosed and unmedicated ADHD. And have been their whole life. Like my grandpa, I think, is like top of the charts there. And so there was a lot of, us growing up as kids that my mom was like, no, this is normal kid behavior, because for her it had been normal kid behavior. And when she would check in with her siblings and, her mom and dad be like, no, that's, what kids do. They've got crazy, wild imaginations. And there was a lot of like coping skills, if you will, that my mom was able to pass down to us that meant we didn't necessarily present in usual ways like ADHD. I think a big one that we learned from my mom is, don't interrupt people. Which is often they're like, well, that's, a thing with ADHD. They're just so excited. The whole thing is happening in our brains where we're like, oh, I can't wait. But we learned from the rutabaga queen, politeness. Miriam is now just cleaning her feet off screen. I apologize. Thank you, Miriam. So we learned that from my mom. And from my dad, one of the things that he really helped us with was learning to sit and be still. So we used to go hunting with him. We'd love to go see movies with him. And he really helped us learn how to just sit and how to be quiet. And it was I can only imagine the frustration he went through, but it was really something he passed on to us. So then, when we come to class, like, yes, I could sit and be in my, chair for hours. And they were like, yeah, that's totally fine. But my mind would be racing. I just knew like, hey, this is how I have to sit and be still and I can't interrupt people. So there was that. As well as honestly, I think I did present a lot more with ADHD symptoms in my junior high and my high school, but that was when my dad was diagnosed with ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. I have a bit of a speech impediment sometimes. So often referred to as Lou Gehrig's disease, and he was sick for quite a while. And there was a lot, when you're a kid and you're watching a parent go through something like that, there was a lot of, even as I talked to my Ehlers-Danlos, there was a lot where I'd look at, myself or my siblings and I go like, but I'm not as sick as my dad is, or, my thing isn't as big as my dad's is. And I think for my mom and my dad, there's only so much as a parent you can handle. And so if it was kind of like, hey, they might seem one or two, like, but overall they're okay. And we're just going to deal with that. So, I went off to college. And then it was also really interesting too, because we talk about like ADHD, sometimes a special interest. Like I loved college because I was only learning about the stuff that I cared about. So I did really good in college. So that was even another like, oh no, she's fine. Look how great she's doing on the surface. But underneath, definitely a lot of ADHD thoughts and a lot of feelings of like, why can't I just do this thing like other people are doing? Like, I always wanted to get my master's and my doctorate, but by the time I was done with college, I was just so exhausted. I was so tired, and I attribute it to a lot of other stuff, but now I just think of, you know, the mental strain I was under to just focus. And I also think too, is once again, as we talk about like anyone's understanding of ADHD, there was like some markers they were looking for that weren't present in me and my siblings in the same way that they, once again, yeah, I could sit and be still. Did I want to? No. Was I off, you know, thinking about other things or da-da-da-da, or constantly tapping or moving or doing whatever? Yes. But I never jumped up. Or did I want to continue to talk and da-da-da-da-da-da? Yeah, 100%. But it was rude, so I couldn't. And especially, I think, once again, being my mom definitely has ADHD. There was a lot of ways we behaved that she was like, no, that's normal. And it really wasn't until I started my health journey about like 2-3 years ago, and I started seeing an amazing therapist. And, you know, when I talk about my anxiety or depression with her, or just some of the ways I get really frustrated in my life, you know, she'd be like, have you ever been diagnosed with ADHD? And, you know, I'd look back at my life and my experience and be like, no, not really. I mean, yeah, I've always been really excitable and talkative and full of energy, but I mean, that's just who I am. And then a lot of like soul searching and conversations and doctors later, I was like, oh shoot, yeah, no, I definitely do. So it's been really, and especially, I also think it might be, because, you know, I'm a millennial. There was this surge, I think, you know, I graduated from high school when I was in 2007, but there was this surge of people who were constantly diagnosing themselves with OCD or ADHD or ADD, where they're like, it's probably because like I'm so blah, blah, blah. And I absolutely had that complex of like, I'm not like other girls. And so I even think there were a part of me where I'm like, just because I'm high energy in this other thing doesn't mean I have ADHD. I'm not going to claim something I'm not diagnosed with. So even leading up to my diagnosis, like I was like, I probably don't. I mean, I probably don't. I mean, blah, blah. And then they were like, no, you 100% do. I was like, oh my gosh. All of that to say, I've actually, I'm not on any medication yet. I will eventually be with my Ehlers-Danlos. I have to go see a cardiologist because they want to make sure everything's good before they put me on a different medication. And it's pretty common with Ehlers-Danlos. So like, don't worry, it's a precaution versus like a who. Anyway, I'm really excited to eventually kind of like see what that is going to be like. Yes, I have a lot of ways of coping and living with ADHD. I've been doing it for 33 years. But I also, as I think about like some of the exhaustion I face, like the mental exhaustion, the thought of like sitting down and doing a task and just doing the task, that is luxury talking. Okay, like that's bougie of like, you could just like sit and just do something. I don't know if that makes sense in the way, but I'm like, oh, that just sounds amazing, and it sounds unattainable. And the fact that everyone else lives their life like that, what are you talking about? So I'm really excited to eventually go on the medication and, you know, just try to figure out like a different way of living. Because also, like, I love my ADHD brain. I love it. As I said, like I'm always entertained. I've always got things going on. I'm always just, you know, I parts of it I just love. But I also love the thought of slowing down. And that's what it sounds like to me with some of this. And once again, you know, my experience could be different, but I love the thought of being able to slow down and get lost in a book for a day. Which, yeah, I can do that now, but that means that I'm preparing my body. I'm like, I'm going to get lost in a book for 2 weeks straight, and then I'm not going to look at another book for a month. But to like get lost in a book and then spend the next day doing another activity and just, I don't know. This is, you know, once again, as with most of my stories and my videos, like this is a living document. I could come back in 6 months and be like, that's all boo. But I just kind of wanted to share where I was at right now. As well as, you know, everyone can have a fun chuckle with me as I share my stories and slowly continue to realize, oh yeah, that was ADHD. That was it right there. Because yeah, as a kid, it was like, no, that's normal. But anywho, okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye.